The first question I'd like to ask you is, how important is research to you?
Well, I really love research, and I make a plan. If I don't plan, it doesn't get done, because it's something that can always be done. It's not like teaching, you have to turn up for the class, present the class, having prepared and so on. With research, you can always put it off to another day. So what I do is I plan, probably in semester blocks, what I'm going to do. And I have a board where I put down my plans. I mean, the plans change a lot, but that really is, it shows my goals to me, really. And that, having it in front of me all the time shows it's a bit of a guilt thing as well, because I can see it and I know that I really need to do it. Now, it's important enough for me to know that I can't do it all the time within the 9 to 5 slot. So I make time, but I love writing, and I see it as a craft, so I see it as quite creative. So yeah, I love doing research.
Now, you have a role as Director of GIER, Griffith Institute for Education and Research. What's the contribution you make to research in the Institute and in the school in that role?
First of all, I think it's my, for want of a better term, duty to be a role model and to be getting projects, completing projects on time and getting publications out of them. And from that, I feel quite credible in mentoring others to do their research. Now, we have a number of people who don't need any mentoring from me, and my role there is to make sure they're supported in appropriate ways. And I think with the team we've got that now. I see my leadership role as more with the early career researchers, new staff, whether they're early career researchers or not, and mid-career researchers. To actually talk to them frequently about their plans, where they're going, put opportunities in front of them, and again support them to take advantage of those opportunities. For example, I have a bit of a rule that, you know, you can't just get all-in funding for something from GIER. And so if I ask people to go out and get support that would be part of the package, well, of course, I take the responsibility that they will have someone to help them put together that application and so on. And that's happening more and more now that we've got a grants officer. So that's probably about it. So to sum up, it's really, I do it, and I enjoy talking to other people about what they're doing. I learn heaps, and it's really enjoyable.
Now, most of the staff in our school are on a 40-40-20 workload, which means they have to balance their research with teaching and service. Yeah. How do you manage to organise your own time for research with the demands that are made on you as a busy academic?
All right, well, what I do is I have a goal for what I would like to publish over a 3-year plan. And I realise that there's no way I'm going to get that done in a regular sort of having a day off or 2 days off. So I tend to do it a bit intensively. And most evenings I would read articles, and I enjoy that. And quite often I would do a bit of writing as well. Certainly I do some on the weekends. I've always done that, whether I've been in this role or not. So it's just keeping in touch with your research all the time that really I think is the most important thing. I mean, there will be times where there's real droughts, when, you know, if there's time for, when it's reporting time and I've got to go through the figures, the staircase figures, I won't be doing anything then, but then I'll bunch it up somewhere else. I think it's really good that people are aware that out of teaching time, they should put aside some research-intensive time so that they actually get a grip on, say, 2 or 3 articles that you can get out there. And of course they'll come back, you know, 2 or 3 times, so you don't have that time to then get into them again.
So just a supplementary to that, what's your view on having a regular research day? Not for you yourself, but also for other people, to have a fixed day, 1 day a week, throughout the year, just for research?
It's essential, because what it does, it puts your mind into, I do research, I'm a researcher, and on that day I am a researcher. And then, if you work it, it can work very well for you, because then you can spend the evening before, the evening after, you know, so you can stretch the day out. But I think you've got to have some period that's designated a no-go zone for anything else. And I know that the school's been really supportive in that, and I think that would be very sad if that was something that went.
Thank you. In particular, I'm thinking in particular here of ECRs and other, what we're calling emerging researchers now, about how they can find time for their research. Is there anything else you can add about specific tips for ECRs? And
yes, I think one of the things that really, I think you have to look at your whole workload. And with teaching, in the early years at least, it's your own show, you want to do the best possible, and you can spend a week and a half, a week, doing your preparation for teaching. And you've really got to get a grip on yourself and say, well, when is enough enough? Because the more you fill that up, the less there is for anything else. So it's really about balance, but I think that's where early career researchers can help each other. And I'm really big on that I think it's good for the professors and associate professors to be mentors, but I think they need to talk among themselves and say, well, you know, and share a bit more on the preparation. I remember myself, I just thought, you know, I can make this even more perfect for tomorrow morning. But in that period of time, I could actually have read a few articles and be on my way to doing another journal article.
right, now, finding time for research is one thing, but using that time effectively is another. What advice can you give us for making the best use of this precious research time?
Yeah, this is something that I probably learnt a little bit late. Probably not until the end of my PhD really, and I try never to finish a research bout, if you like, without knowing exactly what I'm going to pick up when I come back, because I really got sick of that spending, say, a unit of time, but then the next time I came back to it, I actually went back half the unit, and then so I'm really going, you know, I'm only gaining half each time. So what I do now is I try to, it doesn't matter whether it's a difficult thing or an easy thing, but I actually have it planned what I'm going to be doing next, and if possible I have the extra reading and those few things ready, and that's all about being a bit organised as well. So you might have, you know, a whole lot of the reading printed off or electronically, and so you've got it there, but you just actually make a note that that's where you're starting next time. That's worked for me quite well.
Now, thinking about the longer term, what role do you think does effective planning of your projects play in your research, you know, mid-term, longer term? What few are the issues in planning that you pay particular attention to? I'm thinking a month ahead, I'm thinking 3 months ahead, I'm thinking 6 months ahead, but also the overall planning of, you know, if you've got more than one project on the go, you know, thinking about where they're going.
Yeah. Okay, just a bit of history here. I was lucky enough to get an ARC project just on my own when I was not long out of my PhD, and so it didn't have a lot of money attached to it, but that was okay because inadvertently I had to basically do everything, and that enabled me to sort of become a project manager. And you've got to know, eventually you get enough money to, enough funding to have a project manager, but you've got to know how to manage the project. And so that taught me heaps about, you know, where things, you know, I suppose a metaphorical template of how long it would take. Everything takes longer, of course. So you've got to work out, oh, well, this is being done, what else can I? It's not a linear process, and that became fairly a really good learning curve for me. Yeah. So the other thing that I think is something that I probably didn't do as well as I wanted to do, but you've got to really decide on what you want to be good at, and then just keep building on it, and that helps you with your project organisation, because you've actually got, you know, a lit review and a library that you're building up here, and you've got certain techniques for data generation and analysis over here, and they all sort of into change, and so you can manage a lot better.
Okay, now research can sometimes be a lonely activity. How important, and especially for our emerging researchers at ECRs, would you say that collaboration with other researchers is?
Yes, I think that's a really interesting question, because personally I made the decision to want to, I guess, make it on my own first and then collaborate. Now, the research climate has changed, so I don't think you've got that luxury anymore. I think you've got to do a bit of each. But having been on a lot of promotion committees and recruiting committees, that first author thing really is significant. So you really can't get yourself lost in collaboration, but you've got to learn from the collaboration experience. So that could mean being fourth author, but for a couple of publications, whatever your goal is, a proportion of your work has to be you leading it. So it's about collaboration shouldn't allow you to be led all the time.
Thank you. So what advice would you give to young or emerging researchers about research career planning?
That is a good question, because I think there is the temptation not to plan and just to be reactive, because opportunities come your way, and they can be great opportunities, but not for you. And so I think by talking to someone, and I get the opportunity to do that, to try to convince people to really think about it before they politely, say, oh yeah, I'll do that, and so on. And it's especially bad for early career researchers who have a certain skill, for example, a certain talent for a specific kind of analysis. And that's pretty dangerous, because you can be invited in on a lot of disjointed type projects. So I think you've got to sit down and really plan what you want to do and where you want to be. And probably the best thing to do is early career researchers, other early career researchers, but more senior researchers as well, are pretty good. Most people are pretty honest about the advice they give, and they're pretty, from what I've seen, pretty ready to say, look, I made this mistake, and I don't think you would want to make that mistake. So yeah.
Okay, next one's a question about the publication process, and I'm thinking particularly of being persistent and resilient in the face of work being rejected by reviewers and editors. But most of us probably all of us have had at some point. Oh
goodness, I've just had, I think, a great article that I really have had around for a long time, and it's found a home now, and I'm really pleased about that, because, and I have to say that it went through, just before it was actually accepted, 2 major revisions. And out of that I learned heaps, because it's been around for so long that one of the reviewers gave me a whole bunch of new literature. So, it was great, and so I thought, thank you, and it was in an area that I hadn't actually, I do, but it's not my main area, and so I was immensely grateful. So I think, I certainly have gone through the, how embarrassing, I've got this back and it's so awful. But the reviews are never as awful as you first see. You first read them, and I get a rush of, put them away, and somehow it sorts itself out in the drawer. So, and I think it's the problem with the shock, I think, comes, it's more of a shock if you're concentrating on that one article and you're following it through the process. You have a few out there, it's like having tons of kids, it all goes round and round in the wash, and you're not as focused on that, so you actually attend to that, but then something else comes in and probably gets accepted. So it sort of takes the burden away or the guilt away, yeah.
Right, very recently we had, for our project, we presented the paper to Language and Education, and we got the most vicious review I've ever had back. it dismissed the paper in one line and said there's nothing new in this paper. That was the first sentence. And then it spent the rest 2 pages saying how unethical we were being in our research in Aboriginal communities. Now, you know, I've talked to quite a bunch of people. I mean, at this stage, I'm resilient. I can take it, and I know that there's there's an agenda here, a political agenda, and so on.
Yes.
But nevertheless, seeing that review and seeing how vicious it was, they said there's people around in Indigenous education who are just so radical, I suppose. But they see a team which hasn't got an Indigenous person in it.
Yep, I was going to say that.
Touch it.
Yeah, immediately it would be a problem. Yeah.
But anyway, it's interesting. But this one I said, bugger it, that won't go on.
But that's a really good story because it's, and if you take it that you'd gotten that way back, you'd really doubt yourself, and that's what it starts to do. It makes you, well, am I being unethical? And then it takes a deal of resilience to, we'll talk that through with other people, and then come to the conclusion we'll know. And I think that's a really, I think you should put that story in.
Now, is there anything you could say to a colleague who's lost momentum in their research? How they could become, first of all, research active again, and then beyond that?
Lost momentum. I'm assuming from that it means they were research active.
I'm thinking of someone who's got a PhD, and after the PhD, perhaps they might have published something from that, and then stop publishing.
Okay. One of the things that I think is a responsibility of the professoriate is to tactfully identify those people, and if possible, authentically integrate them into a project, because often what happens is that people would like to do something but they don't really know where to start, and one often hears, oh, they can get a seeding grant. Well, that's actually just a mini version of a huge grant, and it's got to be going somewhere. So that's probably the issue. They don't know how to do that. But I think, and we do this, we have a number of people in on our projects, and they are given proper responsibilities, but they're learning how the bigger thing works, and then in one case in particular, I said to the person, to the researcher, this isn't really your area, but I think you could take this and actually apply some of this to your area. She's done that, and she's actually got, she's well into the funding procedure. So I think that's something that could be done. The obvious one is to co-write with people. That could be that people are doing research but not writing. And so that needs to be treated very ethically, because I think there's the temptation perhaps for that person to say, look, I'm not good at this, you take the lead on that. That's something to be negotiated.
So is there anything else you'd like to add? That's all the questions.
No. I'd just like to add that I think this is an excellent idea, an excellent initiative on your part, because it's something that is, well, it can be in your face, depending on how you use it, at whatever, but it can also be something that someone can just sort of reflect on and pull out the bits they want to without being in a public space and having to discuss it. So thanks for the opportunity.
You're very welcome. Thanks very much for being here.